things. I don't want to hold up the shiur because we're already starting 3 minutes late. So, I don't know if this is a good time. If we're waiting for the camera, I don't mind. I should start it.
It's not working.
I'm supposed to use this?
It doesn't work.
Yes, the thing is not one thing.
Huh? The thing is not connected. The mic is not connected.
Am I waiting for this?
No, you don't know. You can go. It's not working. Huh?
See if this one is in from the bottom.
Just before we start the... Should it start or not? Radam Sadr. I'm supposed to start?
Your camera's rolling. Your camera's on.
I'm not getting clear instructions. You should start?
It's straight.
Yes, just before we start, we'll start with the Inin and Hilchos Birkas Hanehnin. And towards the end of the shiur, because of the Rebbe's Hirah, that we should have Siyumim in the 9 days, we'll make a Siyum on the Rambam that we finished today, Chelik and Rambam. Just in the Kudu, when you get Hilchos Birkas Hanehnin, the Rambam says that we're not mevatel to Neukah Shel Beis Rabban for Binim Beis HaMikdash. That Neukah Shel Beis Rabban that is sitting and learning Torah, we don't stop them from Binim Beis HaMikdash. There's 2 ways I understand this Rambam. One way to understand it, that their learning is very valuable, and we don't want to stop their learning, because even for such a great mitzvah as Binim Beis HaMikdash. Alternatively, the pshat in the Rambam is, no, that actually there's a problem with having kids building the Beis HaMikdash. L'choyre, the Rambam brings this halacha twice, brings it once in Hilchos Talmud Torah, once in Hilchos Beis HaBchira. Mashman, there's two aspects of it. Hilchos Talmud Torah, to din not stopping their learning. Hilchos Beis HaBchira, it's a halacha in the Beis HaMikdash, they're not meant to be building the Beis HaMikdash. The Rebbe actually says this in a Sikha, that it's not only a din in Hilchos Talmud Torah, there's a problem with them building. The Rebbe doesn't say they're apostle, but the Rebbe says there's a problem with the cheft of the Beis HaMikdash. And indeed, it's actually interesting, I found a mabit that writes, a ksav yad that was printed from a mabit that says that kids cannot build the Beis HaMikdash, shenemar, anoshim, v'noshim, v'lo yitaf. So clearly he understands that's not just because we don't want to stop their learning, because their learning is very valuable, it's hevel shem bechet, seided lehadar, but because it's a problem with them building the Beis HaMikdash. And this is a whole arichas latz. My mitzvah this week is my son's bar mitzvah. This is what his pilpul is going to be about. It's not going to be l'gela ma'isa anymore because the Beis HaMikdash will be built well before that. But anyhow, that's the Inin Hilchos Birkas Hanehnin. We'll move on and learn Birkas Hanehnin, and at the end of the shiur we'll have a siyum. So for those who are following along from a siddur, which is highly recommended. So say the Birkas Hanehnin Perek Beis Halacha Gimel, which is page 417. In the art scroll, there's no page numbers for this. So page 417 in the Tilus Hashem. We're up to Halacha Gimel. What's the maskana with the mic? Brach l'vatala. Brach l'vatala. So negate what we're talking about. Okay. Fine. Okay. It is Burton. Okay, just to summarize what we did in the previous 2 halachas, we learned that when a person eats, even if he's not eating regular bread, he's eating what's called lechem she'eina gomer, which is a whole range of cookies and cakes and wafers and all those things. They're called lechem she'eina gomer. But even if you're eating that, if you're eating an amount which is called kedei svia or kviyas suda, there's 2 different terminologies used, then the halach is you're supposed to make it in hamoitzi and birchas hamazon. And last week we learned at length how much that amount is, and there's a range of different amounts. Depends if you're eating, if you are full, if you're not full, you should take another piece of bread, you should make directly on it, depending on how much you eat. This was a whole arichas that we did last week, and I really don't want to go and repeat that again. But we did find out last week 2 very relevant, a few very relevant maskanas, everything is relevant, that even if eating a very, very small amount, but if you are saveya, then the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur is very machmir, and he's concerned if you feel full, the Alter Rebbe is machmir, you should go get another piece of bread. That's we don't even care whatever amount it is. Cake, cookies, bagels, mezainis bread, it doesn't make a difference what you call it. And even if it's really mezainis, but if it's it's what's called lechem she'eina gomer, even if you eat a very small amount, but you are saveya, so we learned this last week, we're choishish in the shittas harayvid, it's a chashash d'oraisa, that is a din of a chalto savata, you should take another piece of bread and make hamoitzi. We also learned that sometimes you can make hamoitzi directly on this lechem sheina gomer on the cake and cookies, etc. And the example and the case where that's relevant is if a person is going to is full and he eats what we call daled beim, and daled beim is not a very large amount. Remember, we spoke about this a few times. It's the volume of an egg, not the weight of eggs. So look at the average size egg in your egg container. Let's say it's a bit small, okay, a tiny bit bigger than that. 4 average size eggs, and eating the volume, so taking 2 rolls is definitely the shiur of daled beim, and you are severe. So it's directly hamaitzi, directly on that. And then we learned what if it's 6 beim, what if it's 21 beim. I'm not going to go into all of that. So the end of the shiur last week, we mentioned is something which is not clear. What is the definition of seveya? Seveya means he can't eat anymore. Seveya means he's not hungry. And we brought a range of different examples in halacha of different levels of severe. Again, I'm not going to repeat the shiur from last week, but what we concluded the shiur was, and I just wanted to clarify that we concluded the shiur that severe l'ch'oira, according to the Alter Rebbe, does not mean that you're mamish nafshay kotza, doesn't mean that you're full and you can't eat anymore. It means that you're not hungry. Now, everything you eat calms down your hunger slightly. The Gemara says that a koiseves miyas v'daita, it calms you down slightly. We spoke last week. There's hunger in the throat and there's hunger in the stomach. There's various levels of svia. Sviyas hagorin and sviyas hakeres. But we obviously don't mean that your hunger is calmed down slightly. We mean that your hunger is calmed down completely. That you're not really interested in eating anymore. Not that you have a hard time eating. Not that nafshe shalodem kotza. Not that it can keep you going for 6 hours, like some acharonim say. But I'm full. Like it means in English. I'm full. I'm satiated. I don't really want to eat anymore. Maybe in some time I might want to eat more. That's called seveya. And once he's seveya, we run into a very serious shayla. The Torah says v'chaltav sarata v'rachta. The Torah doesn't have this thing called lechem gomer, lechem sheina gomer. That doesn't exist in the Torah. And as far as the Torah is concerned, the chiyuv that I was mentioning. So because of the machloikas, how to determine this, we always have to be concerned with this shash. This is the first year. The Alter Rebbe in the Siddur takes the view that benching when Torah is not main gimel is dafka Birkas Hanehnin. Not like the Shulchan Aruch or whatever. That's another discussion. Moving on to Siv Gimel and Siv Daled, or Halacha Gimel and Halacha Daled, we're going to talk about 2 other topics, also very, very negei l'maisa. And they were raised by questions or whatever it is. Very often the questions get resolved as we learn further. One issue that's in Siv Gimel, Halacha Gimel, the Alter Rebbe is going to talk about, what if your satiation is achieved not only by the bread? I'm using the word bread in Alter Rebbe language. Not only by the lechem sheina gomer, not only by the bagels and the cakes and the cookies. You have other stuff that are contributing to this feeling of satiation. Can you count the tuna fish and the egg salad and all of that? That's what we talk about in Halacha Gimel. In Halacha Daled, we're going to talk about what if you started off, and that's very relevant nowadays. I started off not being full, and all of a sudden I want to eat more, and I'm becoming full. Your mood changes in the middle, your mood and your status. Today people update their status every second. So Halacha Daled talks about someone whose status is updated. So l'chatchila maybe it wasn't Kedei Svia, but then it became Kedei Svia. What do I do now? But till Halacha Daled, we're talking about you come down, you sit down, you know how much you want to eat. You know you have in front of you your food, and you don't keep on standing up and going to the fridge and checking if there's more food. You know you're eating Gimel Beim, Daled Beim, Vav Beim, Kafal Beim. You have it all worked out. And you know you're going to be seveh, you know your stomach, you know your system. You're very masudadi. So that's what we're going to be learning till Halacha Daled. But we have to now examine, are we going to include other foods? Do other foods join in as well? So let's look at Siv Gimel. Again, page 417. Halacha Gimel. If a guy is not full just from the bread by itself, from the min lechem zet, this type of bread, what's called lechem sheina gomer, not by the bread by itself, but he joins along the bread with other condiments. The translation of the word lifton in English is condiment. I'm not sure if it makes it easy for people if I say an English word, which means things they eat along with the bread. The Alter Rebbe mentions there are 2 conditions. Lifton hamasbia. It's something that's eaten with bread, and it's something that makes you full. In the Torah we have the words in Chumash Parshas Vayigash, bar v'lechem u'mazon. Bar is tvua, lechem is bread, and then there's something else called mazon. And there's a Bavli and a Yerushalmi on that, but I'm not talking Bavli and Yerushalmi, I'm talking Pshuta Shamikra. So some of Roshim learn mazon means that you're adding lifton together with your bread. People always eat other stuff with the bread. The Gemara says about Americans, the Gemara says about Babylonians, but we're just making the Gemara more contemporary. Hani bavloi tipshoi, da'achla nama benama. They actually eat bread. We need to put something in the bread. So you eat bread with bread. So together with bread, you also have cake and cookies. Whatever. You eat bread with something. So that's lifton. What's masbia? Masbia means it's something that makes you full. There's certain kind of foods. Later in Perek Dalet, Alter Rebbe goes into a discussion about certain foods that are made to be eaten in a meal and certain foods that are not made to be eaten in a meal. Nafkamina, when you wash for a meal, you make hamotzis. Hamotzis cover everything in the meal. Certain foods you make brachas on in a meal. So the Alter Rebbe talks there. There's foods that are made to go eat with bread, foods that are made to make you full, and foods that you eat stamazoi. So there's foods that are clearly made l'lafes u'l'hasbia. So which means there's certain kind of foods. Cereal, let's say, is maybe made l'hasbia, but you don't eat it with bread. It's l'maz and b'tafshul. It's not made to be eaten with bread. Then there's foods that are not made l'hasbia. They're made to eat with tainig, ice cream, and other things are clearly not made l'hasbia. So here we're talking about you ate it with lifton hamasbia. Kegoyin. The Alter Rebbe adds and says, he's very specific. He gives you an example. Shemalapsa means you took the bread and you made a sandwich. You added something with it. Fish or meat or other examples. So you ate with your bread other things until you're full. The Alter Rebbe is going to be mechadish here. It's not the Alter Rebbe's chiddush, it's the Magen Avram's chiddush. And a lot of people have a very hard time with this Magen Avram. He made life very, very difficult for some of us. The Magen Avram really has 3 chedushim. But we're not learning Magen Avram, we're learning Alter Rebbe, so I'm not going to mention the 3 chedushim of the Magen Avram. And the Alter Rebbe has also a number of chedushim and how he understands the Magen Avram. And as we mentioned so many times since the beginning of this Shiur, that Alter Rebbe, there's the way he says it in Shulchan Aruch and in Luach, and the way he says it in the Siddur. The same halacha that we're learning right now has at least 4 shinuyim, the way it's in the Shulchan Aruch and the Luach, and the way it's in the Siddur. So we follow the Siddur, that's Basrei, that's the final psak. And there's also kulas and chumras. In some ways, in most of the cases, the Siddur always has more chumras. But in this particular halacha, there's a certain kulas and chumras. The Alter Rebbe is mechadish, and it's very clear. I know some people want to drei the Alter Rebbe, you can always drei. But it's pretty clear in Alter Rebbe that the foods that will join in are only such foods, that's a kula right now, that are lifton hamasbia. It has to be food that you eat with bread, and it makes you full. Well, the fact that it has to be food that makes you full is obvious, because Alter Rebbe's whole word is that your satiation feeling doesn't have to come only from the lechem she'eino gomer, it can also be from the other foods. So obviously it's foods that are masbia, because that's the whole word that's making you full. But Alter Rebbe is saying it has to be something which is lifton, and look at Alter Rebbe's lashon clearly. Not only says oichloi im lifton, kegoin shemalafsei. Shemalafsei means that you actually went and you put the bread in it. The Derech HaChaim says it's beferish. He says the chumras and Magen Avram doesn't apply to everything you eat in your meal. And there's a lot of very strong guys to that zvara. I'll just mention one pashtaraya. His halachas about eating cake in the middle of a meal. So a guy eats a full meal and then he eats cake for a dessert, which is called idem v'tainuk. It's a pleasure. So the halach is it makes it a mezainis. If you're going to tell me that everything in the meal joins, how's it shaykh to make a mezainis on cake in the middle of a meal? Everything is part of your hamoitzi. Obviously, you can't include everything into your. Everything joins up with the cake you ate at the end. So obviously, there's such a thing. There's food that joins and food that doesn't join, which makes life much easier. I'm not going to join everything, but if you're going to buy a roll with tuna, with egg salad, with a bunch of other stuff that go along with the bread, and that is lifton hamasbia, the Alter Rebbe says that will join. Zog the Alter Rebbe why? The Alter Rebbe says a strong lashon. Harei zeh. By the way, some people, there's a machlokes amongst hangtiga achronim. I said that the Chaim has already mentioned this. Does it include only the foods they eat with the bread, or the chumra goes across the board? Everything that was by the kiddush, the chalom, the kugel, the whole 9 yards, which makes it very difficult to join a fabrengen because there's so many stuff that I'm eating by the fabrengen. So one of their teiros are that basar is not supposed to be eaten with bread. And since the Achroinim, the Magen Avram, they all say basar, obviously it's not talking about something you eat with bread. Well, guess what? The Alter Rebbe says, "Kegoin shemalafsei b'basar." He says that And not only that, it's actually not even true. You see, in today's day and age, we don't eat basar with bread. Actually, we do. You go to stores, they sell you wraps and sandwiches with basar. But b'chlal, in a normal meal, we have the lechem, and later we have the basar. But you look in the Gemara, you look in the Rishonim, you look in Hilchos Birkas Hanehnin, we find clearly that there's things that are bal olafas and sapas, and an example is basar. So clearly, basar, dog, these are all stuff that we eat. We eat fish salad with the bread, fish wraps, schnitzels with bread. We do all those things. So this is what we're talking about. You ate that with your bread. Says the Alter Rebbe, even though you became full because you also ate these foods, harei zeh keilu sava mimenu levadoi. Al pi din, it's counted as if your satiation came only from the bread. You know, the Alter Rebbe doesn't say that joins in also. He says this makes you makes al pi din as if you saturated from the bread. Because where's the Torah say v'chaltav savata? On bread. That's how we understand the pasuk. So the chiv benjamin Torah, you have to be full from bread. We're being mechadish here that if you're eating something with bread, that's not a separate thing. It joins along. Explains the Alter Rebbe why, and this is a chiddush of the Alter Rebbe, because nobody gives this explanation. Other people say because a normal meal has a bunch of other food with it. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say that. The Alter Rebbe says lefi sha'alifton tfeilaloi, because when you're eating other foods with bread, the other foods are considered secondary to the bread. We don't mean over here the din of when a person eats a meal of bread, of real bread, then you don't make hamoitzi on almost the entire meal, except for the dessert. We don't mean that kind of level of tafel. We mean tafel, something that you're eating with the bread. We're not talking about real bread over here. We're talking about mezainis, right? But it's considered secondary when you're eating a tuna sandwich. The tuna is secondary to the sandwich, even though your sandwich was made out of so-called mezainis bread. Shaliftan tfeilaloi. And Dar Lake to the Alter Rebbe adds another 5 very critical words which we said ribi pamim, but if here it's mamish befedish, it's already meduik right in the very first halacha. But he says v'neschaye v'birkas hamazon min ha'Torah, which is what we were saying a number of times. That in the Siddur the Alter Rebbe learns that this thing that you have to make hamoitzi mikavei suda birkas hamazon, not hamoitzi. Hamoitzi is not min ha'Torah, but you have to make birkas hamazon mikavei suda is not a psach chumra. It's a chiv deraisa. Because the Torah, lechem, doesn't make a difference. It's all lechem in the Torah. So this is benjamin deraisa, which goes back to what we said a few times. I can't overemphasize it, that eating kavei suda on mezainis could make you be chayiv more in benching than a guy that eats regular bread. Because a guy that eats regular bread and only ate a kazayis is chayiv in benching with rabbanon. But if you're eating mezainis, those mezainis that are called lechem sheina gamas, we'll learn about, and your surveyor, that's chiv benjamin deraisa, even if your svia came from the lifton, from the stuff that are joining along. Based on what we just now said, Alter Rebbe is going to repeat back the last 2 lines of the previous halacha. And there's some people that actually read this wrong. I don't know how you could read it wrong, but I guess everything is possible to read wrong. Just for the sake of being fair, I'll give you the wrong interpretation first. If somebody eats the shiur of dalad bein, which we said is the minimum shiur of kviyas suda, from this type of bread, the type of bread which people don't normally make a meal on, not usual bread, there's regular bread that people are kviyas suda, and there's lechem she'ein derech b'nei adam l'kviyas suda, people are not kviyas suda on cake. So you ate this kind of bread, in lifton kazeh, and the dalad bein included, in your dalad bein included the lifton. That's the wrong pshat. Now the correct pshat is no, you ate dalad bein only of bread. Plus, in addition to the dalad bein of bread, you ate lifton at shesava. It's very clear, and there's a lot of rights for that also, but again, I don't want to confuse things, that there's 2 parts here. There's the shiur and there's the hergish hasviya. The shiur, in order to make hamoitzi birkas hamazon, the minimum shiur, I know sometimes when machmir tell you to get another piece of bread. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the shiur is dalad bein. The minimum shiur is dalad bein, to be able to make hamoitzi mentioned directly on it. Then there's another condition, you got to be full. So I'm not counting the lifton in your shiur. Lifton cannot be part of the shiur. The shiur is from lechem. Any Shiur has to be from lechem, because the Shiur we learn from Erev Tchumen, we learn the Shiur in Kol HaTorah Kula. What's considered a Suda? What is it talking about? In all those places? So even a Suda Saniyim, the simplest meal, you eat lechem a certain amount. But since there's a Chiddush over here, there's a din, you have to be Saveya. For Yisviya, im lifton kazeh. What does kazeh mean? Kazeh means the type of lifton which causes you to become full. You see the Hadgash word kazeh? Not any lifton, only lifton that causes you to make the full. So you eat your bread, we didn't even talk about what Mazonis bread really is. It's called the elephant in the room, so we're keeping the elephant here in the room. Let's assume Mazonis bread is Mazonis l'chol hadayis. But you're eating it with lifton, with something else with it. You ate dalad beim of it. Dalad beim is a Shiur Kviya Suda. And you became full, and I don't care if the tuna made you full also. Mevarech hamoitzi Birkas Hanehnin, not midrabanan, but midraisa, because the lifton is tough. Or v'pachis mikein, the person is eating less than dalad beim. Mevarech alechem achatchila, that we already learned in the previous sif. That the Alter Rebbe is very machmer and chosh to the shittas harayvid. That sphere goes according to you, and I don't even care how much you ate. As soon as you surveyor, you have to. But that's only one opinion, so you can't just directly make hamoitzi and mention that. The person, whatever amount you ate, even less than dal beim, and less than gimel beim, and less than beis beim, whatever you eat, if you're full, I don't care how you became full. Even if you became full from the lifton, go get yourself another piece of bread. That's in a nutshell this halach over here. Now just unplugged it.
You unplugged the cat.
What is?
I asked you what's the problem.
What is obvious over here is. Continue. I'll do it without him.
How much bread? When is stick of bread in 10 babe that some of men that wash?
If you survey a lechem acher, yes, it doesn't make a difference. So. Okay. No? Okay. With the bread, yeah. By the way, it's very clear. The Alter Rebbe over here is different than the Alter Rebbe in the Luach. In the Luach, the Alter Rebbe is a mamish a different lashon. Im kava sidasai va'achal imay basur udvarim acherim. It's when you compare. Sometimes you want to be medayik. It's very hard to be medayik because you don't know why he wrote this following lashon. It's an example. He gave a practical example. But when you see the same author wrote something 3 times, and over here he wrote like this, and then he changed his words and he wrote differently, then the dik is much stronger. So I can tell you, in the Luach he writes, and the Shulchan Aruch, achal imay basur udvarim acherim. Over here he wrote, Achloi im lifton hamazbir kegoin shemalaf. So it's clear that you're eating it mamish on the bread. If it's be on the bread or together with the bread, but not in the same meal, but together with the bread. So then it joins in. Okay, now here's something interesting I want to share with you. I don't want to confuse you too much, but in Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe writes, when the gate is not to my lechem shenegam. I want to with the bread, yeah. The Shulchan Aruch Alter Rebbe talks about when you get to bread, real bread, genuine bread, lechem gomer. It says in the Torah v'chaltav savato. What's part of the savato? Let's go to the real bread, the original old-fashioned bread. And it's the chiv the rice v'chaltav savato. When am I chayiv the rice? When am I chayiv the rabbanon? You want to know who cares if it's the rice or the rabbanon? There's a lot of nafkamin if it's the rice or the rabbanon. One nafkamina, if you makadosh isha, I'm glad that it's a deraisa. But if you want to know a real nafkamina, if you have a suffix, if you benched or not, when it's a deraisa, you bench again. When it's a rabban, you don't. Every time you bench, you need to know if you're benching the deraisa, you're benching the rabban. What happens if you don't know if you benched? So Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch throws in a line, and he says, "Shekol ma sheba b'toich hasuda muklal hasvir." And he's clearly talking about the soup, the chicken, the everything, the whole. It's obviously not like that. But the fear in his deity, one of 2 things happened here. It's not that the one is lechem sheina gomer. That's not the chiluk. That chiluk doesn't make any sense. Because from the perspective of what we're talking about, lechem gomer, sheina gomer, it's all lechem. The chiluk is over there. First of all, he either was chayzer by likula, But what's most more likely, and again I don't want to go into halarichas, is that in Shulchan Aruch he never meant to say what I just now said. Shulchan Aruch is not talking about dine v'chalta savata. He's talking about dine making a brach on your soup and on your chicken, and he says all these things also tend to make you full. He doesn't mean miklal asvir that it started. The Alter Rebbe took this from somewhere. He took this from a Baal Hamad, and the Baal Hamad also never meant that. So we don't have to make a machlokes unnecessarily. Anyways, let's just summarize and see very bekitzer. That what we learned over here is that legabi shiur svia, we're mitzaref all the other foods that you're eating with your bread if they make you full. If you're eating them with bread, but you still, there's whatever the shiur of ours, the same regular shiur as always. This is a shaila, by the way, b'chlal, what you join in with the bread. When you get to real bread, it's always a shaila. The Mishnah Berurah brings that the Pri Megadim says it has to be only bread, nothing else. So the Mishnah Berurah, obviously the Pri Megadim wasn't talking about if you ate it mamash with the bread. So again, you see the schiluk. Mishnah Berurah understood the bepashtus that even when the Pri Megadim writes beferish, only pas is included in the in of svil. You got a real bread. In the chalt of savata, he didn't mean if it's something that's mamash on the bread, that's sure that's included. And that's what we're talking about over here. Now let's move on to something interesting in Halacha Dalet. In Halacha Dalet we can discover that sometimes what you ate before for breakfast and for lunch might also join. Even though Halacha Dalet wasn't talking about breakfast and lunch, it's talking about when a person starts eating and then he changes his mind. But you'll see in Halacha Dalet that you could eat and bench, and then you still could have your svia from before. Let's see it inside. But Halacha Dalet is not talking about fish and meat. It's talking about bread and bread. You eat bread and then you eat more bread. So all the bread obviously includes even if you made a bracha achrei in the middle. The Alter Rebbe in Halacha Dalet is going to raise the question: what if a person is a confused guy? Huh? The Alter Rebbe in Halacha Dalet is going to talk about lechem she'eino gomer. And the person is a confused guy. You told me if you're full, if you're not full, you're dollar baby, Beis. I don't know how much I'm eating, whatever. I started eating, I decided I'm not in the mood of washing. So I call it mezainis. And I'm told there's a rule, if you're eating only a small amount, it's mezainis. Achilas arai, I'm making mezainis, I'm not saveya, it's not vav beim. You're allowed to eat, by the way, according to halacha, up to vav beim. You can get an extension, all the way to vav beim. So long that you're not saveya, I don't know how this is relevant in American society. In Russia, I know people that eat officially not to be lasbia. But in America, we eat always lasbia. Because if you're not saveh, you go back to the refrigerator and take more. So lachatchali you need to be saveh. But Ili, the Bachrim Yeshiva, still in Russia. So a person's eating achilas adi. I'm not planning to be kaveh suda. I'm eating a small amount. Up to vav beim is the shir in previous halacha. I'm not being saveh. So it's mezainis, no problem. Assuming the food is a mezainis food. It's cookies, it's cake, it's mezainis. But then he said, you know what? The cake is a zagishmaka cake. Maybe we'll have some more. And maybe it's kedai to be saveh from the cake instead of waiting for the fashimul tabreit, which I'm going to get later tonight for supper. That's what we're talking about over here. The Chatchili was planning to eat only temporary meal. And then he changed his mind and decided he's going to eat. What does it say by you? Oidu ad? There's two gersois, it depends on the print. And it's a shtickle of gemina between both gersois, but whatever. Everybody has oid, will also say oid. And then he decides he's going to eat more. He's going to eat kedei svia kviya suda. Notice something interesting. I don't know if you're paying attention to these words. It's the first time we have this interesting terminology called kedei svia kviya suda. We had the word kedei svia, we had the word kviya suda. We never had the word kedei svia kviya suda. So without making things complicated, it's obvious how that means over here that he changed his mind and decided to eat adasaf. I'm going to be full, and I'm going to eat the shir, which is called the kviya suda, dal beim and saveh. In other words, we keep on going back and forth, the saveh and the shir. He's doing both. He's eating a full shir, and he's being kaves, and he's being saveh for it. He wants to eat. He went to the store. He couldn't afford it, so he went to the store. Let me ask a question later. You lose the train over here. He went to the store. He only had a. He said, I can't afford to buy a full meal. Eat achilas arai. And then he said, it's not a credit card. It's good food. I'll go weiter. I'll eat kedei svia kviya suda. So now it's going to turn to Hamoitzi, Birkas Hamazon, tells them everything changes, but I'm in the middle of a meal. What do I do? So in Shulchan Aruch and Luach, everything changes all the time. In Shulchan Aruch and Luach, the Alter Rebbe says, don't do anything. Keep on eating, and when you finish, you'll bench. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch and the Luach. And here the Alter Rebbe, Kedarka B'Kodesh, in the Luach, is... Whatever, I don't want to go into what it says in the Shulchan Aruch and Luach. It's a bit, I oversimplified it. But the Poel, the Alter Rebbe says, eat until you bench. And at the end, you'll bench. But in Siddur, the Alter Rebbe is very often machmer, and now he's machmer again. He says, let's be yoytze alle days. Nacha and lotzes yidei kol safik. You should be yoytze every single safik possible. You'll make al amichya, then you'll wait, and then you'll make again a moitzi, and then you'll eat a full meal. But it's a lointzich, you should pay that extra money. Because you have to, the Alter Rebbe is very worried over here what you're going to do right now, in the Siddur. And that's what we pass on the Ma'aseh. The Alter Rebbe says, first make al amichya. First make al amichya. Why in the Luach you say not to make al amichya? In the Luach he said, I ate bread before. It's all called bread. I ate before. I'm going to continue eating, so it's all going to join in. And over here he backed out. So the Tillel of David learns one pshat, and that's why they bring in this Birkas Hanehnin. I have no idea why they don't bring the pshat that the Rebbe wrote down. The Tillel of David says, the Rebbe over here was starting to be concerned. I don't know, Shnei Min Lechem. I'm not sure if you can count it as one meal. When you start one way, you change your mind. He wasn't sure. Take the easy route. Well, harder for us, but easy in halacha. Shouldn't be any halachic problems. Just make al amichya. So finished meal one. The Rebbe wrote B'Ksav Yad Kodesh, copy down a whole entire sefer of one of the Einiklach with the Tzemach Tzedek, which is called Shemak Doilim, which he wrote a bunch of ha'aris on Birkas Hanehnin. Besides the fact that Rebbe made some of his own ha'aris, very few ha'aris, but the Rebbe took a whole sefer, was mighty the whole sefer. Years ago, Rabbi Ashkenazi was in Yechidus, and he told the Rebbe that he wants to write Man Mekoymis on Birkas Hanehnin. The Rebbe said, you don't need to, so Shindof and Einiklach from Tzemach Tzedek. So he was convinced that the Rebbe often calls himself an Einiklach from Tzemach Tzedek, and the Rebbe must have his ha'aris Birkas Hanehnin. So we've been waiting for years to find out where those ha'aris. Now, he was wrong, but he was also right. He was wrong because the Rebbe meant the Einiklach from Tzemach Tzedek with Pashtus. There's a sefer of an Einiklach from Tzemach Tzedek, was a Rav in Zhitomir, and he wrote, I believe his name is Ramat Chashnei Azam, if I remember the name correctly. He wrote a ha'aris on the whole Birkas Hanehnin, and the Rebbe actually copied it down for himself. But also the Rebbe wrote a few ha'aris of his own, which was mamish few ha'aris, and almost every one of them is the Rebbe wrote for himself, just what it says in Ketzos HaShulchan. It seems like just to review it. Anyhow, so Lachre Maimon HaMusgar, the Rebbe's cousin, for lack of any other name, the Einiklach of Tzemach Tzedek, says a svara like this, which is very svara de Gesach. He says, if you're not going to... what am I going to do now? I'm in the middle of a meal, and I'm starting to eat kaviyas suits. I have to make a moitzi. He says, I can't make a moitzi, because I ate already mizoynes. And there's a shita that says that b'di'evet yoytze a moitzi with mizoynes. Interesting. In the Luach, the Alter Rebbe holds it actually not yoytze a moitzi with mizoynes, so that's why he doesn't say this. In the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe says, Machloikes stuff u'brach l'hakol. So it fits in. The Alter Rebbe changed his mind. I can't tell you go make a moitzi and then you'll bench. I make a moitzi. I made mizoynes already. Could be b'di'evet am yoytze. So I'm stuck here. What am I going to do? So I got to wrap up the previous meal. Yivarech bein gimel mashkvarach. First make al amichim what you ate. Now yishamat, and now I'll take a break because I'm gonna wash now and make a moitzi. So you can't just start a meal and stop meal, start a new meal. So bracha she'en tzricha. So in order to avoid bracha she'en tzricha, by waiting a bit, it semi takes away the problem. Even though the derech klal doesn't mamish take away the problem. But Alter Rebbe over here, as an extra chumrah, so it shouldn't look like can't just take a meal, bench, and then continue the meal. By the Polish, there's a minig when Shabbos falls on an Erev Yom Tov, and they eat Shal Shudas, so you can't eat Shal Shudas late in the day. I know in 770 you don't have a problem eating Suda Shniya late in the day. But Al Pidin is a problem after Shal Sidis to eat a meal. They want to eat Shal Shudas. So there's a few different eitzes. One of the eitzes they do is, the Alter Rebbe brings this eitz in Shulchan Aruch, but he has a problem with it. It's a tile to Seder. You eat half the meal till the chulent, and then you bench, then either you go shlafen, l'chavet Shabbos, or you take a walk around the block, and then you eat shol and kugel, all the three kind of kugel, l'chavet Shabbos, l'chavet Yom Tov, whatever. and then eat the second half of the meal. So they make a shtickle hefsek. Now the Alter Rebbe Shalom is not so comfortable with that hefsek, but Al Kapanim it does accomplish something. So take a hefsek. I said it's not worth it to just make the chetchila hamaitzi before you sit down to eat everything. It's just running into problems. But that's what the Alter Rebbe says they should do. And then after you take a break, yitul yadav, biyivarech hamaitzi, wash, make hamaitzi, now you can eat your second meal. The Tila David says that the Alter Rebbe preferred a suffix bracha sheina tzricha than not making a bracha tzricha, which is obvious. We say that we see that all over. In other words, you're running to a shayla bracha sheina tzricha. Better to go run to a shayla bracha sheina tzricha than eating without a bracha. Here you might be eating without a bracha because you maybe have to make a moitzi. Maybe you're not oitz with himazainis. Maybe you have to make birkas hamazon. So that's not a maybe. That's mamsha, a serious issue of the raisa. So I'm better off. And that, by the way, that's bechlal. If you have a shayla, you're stuck. Better. I'm not talking bracha batola, but bracha sheina tzricha. So it's better to have to make an extra bracha and have in mind the bracha shouldn't include make a hefsek in between or whatever it is. So you shouldn't run into a shayla of eating without a bracha. That's a general call. Because then it's not a bracha sheina tzricha. It's a bracha tzricha. It's tzricha. Why is it tzricha? Because I don't want into a shayla of eating below bracha. So let's go back to the case over here. I'm middle of a meal. I might have to make a hamaitzi. I might not be able to make a hamaitzi now. So we'll cut the meal in half. And we'll make a alamich. I know it's a shtickle bracha shein tzricha. Okay, nish gefährlich. And then I'll wash. V'yoichel ad kedei svia. Now you can eat to your heart's content. Not to your heart's content. You must eat till your heart is fully content. V'yivarech birkas hamazon. Now you'll bench. Av she'eino yisaveya ma'achila ashni levada. You're feeling of
washing on there.
You're washing on your lechem sheina gomer.
Again.
Yeah, you have in front of you lechem sheina gomer. You have cake. So you ate a bit of cake and you made mezayim. You're gonna make alamichya, and then you said, "Oh, come on, kakish cake. My mother's. I didn't have this for years. I'm gonna eat a full meal on this. Make alamichya, take a break, and then sit down and wash on your lechem sheina gomer and eat a full amount. Now you're going to become full. Obviously, you're only going to become full based on what you ate before, because that's how your stomach works. What you think your stomach has a cloud, and once you make a bracha achrona, it forgets that you're full from before. As I time the chazanish, not the stomach, but since you made a bracha achrona, I can't count the two spheres. But you can't learn like that according to the Alter Rebbe, because the bracha achrona you made is the bracha achrona the Rabbanan. Was alamichi gonna help legabe the chiyuv birkas hamazon deraisa? Alamichi is takanas chachamim according to the Rebbe Rishonim. So you did legabe deraisa the Rabbanan doesn't count. So you engage in some religious activity which some rabbis told you to engage in. Very nice, but the Eibishter never told you to do that. So I don't know what you did. Some nice activity. No, mitzad deraisa that doesn't exist. Of course, it's l'sasser and it's very important, but when talking about tzaddichiv deraisa, so it didn't take away. It's one long meal from the deraisa point of view. Your meal is continuing a full meal, so you can be full based on what you ate before. But v'hu, the Alter Rebbe says something here which is interesting. L'poyel, Alter Rebbe makes a condition and says v'hu she'achol b'achroni gedal beim l'pachas. The Alter Rebbe says, I need in the second meal you need to eat a full shiur of kviyas suda. But svia, which is the gather of a chalt of savata, I don't care what the svia accomplishes. But legabe the din of a shiur of dal beim, here the Alter Rebbe holds that you must eat a shiur dal beim. Why do you have to eat a shiur dal beim? Doesn't say why. But according to the Rebbe's cousin Yeshleim bepashtas, I want to make now a moitzi. I can't make now a moitzi unless I'm eating now. I'm starting now a new meal. For my hamaitzi, I need to have the shiur, which Chazal were not masakin to make. It's the Rabbanan thing. We're not masakin to make hamaitzi. You know, you're operating on multiple levels there. You're operating on the Rabbanan level when you made the alamichya. Now on the Rabbanan level again when you're making hamaitzi. And then you're going to the deraisa level again with the benching. So to make hamaitzi, I need to eat a shiur. But to get the svia, which is the chiyuv deraisa to be saveya, that I can join my svia from before. So in order that we shouldn't be confused over here, let's just summarize what this halacha is. You started a meal, decided to eat only a tiny bit, and then you decided I'm going to change modes and go into kviyas suda mode. No problem. But life is not that easy if you do that. If you do that, you'll have to make alamichya, take a break, wash, eat a moitzi, and now eat a full shiur, which is daled beim. But you don't have to make yourself sugar. Did I become full from this meal, from that meal? I don't really care what made you full. Everything else is included in making you full. Which from here is pretty obvious that legav the shiur svia bechlal, nothing to do with this case. I could include meals from before. If I ate meals from before, of course that would include the lechem from any lechem that I eat. Always include, obviously, in the shiur svia. Doesn't make a difference when I ate it. Verkehrt. Das ist verkehrtes Wort. Shame that makes it less. Why can't it be from breakfast? So the Radvaz actually says it's befedish, and Azoy is a shtickle raya from Al Rebbe elsewhere, that if a person ate even one kazayas, let's talk now about skip lechem sheina gomer, lechem gomer. I ate one kazayas, but I'm full. Why am I full? Obviously, because I ate all day. So the Radvaz says, of course it's mitzdarif. Man, after minute when I ate it. The shiur daled beim is the shiur of daled beim. I need to eat in my second meal. I need to shiur daled beim.
Even if you don't, but you're severe, you still need good from only for Amitzi, but not for good from
So I said that as a svar. I can't tell you about those. I know I said that as a svar. That could be that it. I didn't follow what you were saying.
If you ate in the second suda less than that basis, but you're still severe.
So the Alter Rebbe.
What? No, in this case,
the Alter Rebbe says he has to eat daled beim. He doesn't. So I suggested that maybe it's because of Amitzi. I don't know if that's correct shot. I don't know. I gave a suggestion. But I don't want to go into the whole confusion with the whole discussion around. This is going to become a whole discussion. We're going to forget the halakha. For Amitzi, no, but this is lechem sheina gomer. Lechem gomer is a kazayis. And lechem sheina gomer, you don't make Amitzi. You don't make Amitzi on cake when you eat a kazayis of cake. There you normally need a shiur of daled beim. And you already ate one suda and you finished your suda. Now you're starting a new suda. For your new suda, you want to make Amitzi. There's a shiur. The shiur is daled beim and saveya. Or if it's not saveya, make mezainis. If it's less than daled beim and saveya, take lechem acher. There's all those rules. So that's the pashto. I'm suggesting a pshat. I can't tell b'vadois that's a pshat, but kach literally. Trying to think if I should go into something else. We should do quickly a siyum. Anyhow, I don't think we have enough. I don't think we have enough time to start something else. So anyway, the halachah seems pretty v'negei l'poil. You need to be very careful. If you're going to be saveya, then you might either take another piece of bread or make directly a mitzvah mention of this. And if you change the middle of your meal, then as an eitz, you could move around. You could make ala michya, then wait, and then wash again, and then eat a full kadei sir, which I don't know if people are really interested in doing that, because it makes life a bit interesting. Just to be mekayim the Rebbe's hayra of making a siyum in the 9 days, Bashkocha Prat, we're finishing a set of halachas and Rambam. Anybody have a Rambam on them? Anybody that didn't finish Rambam and left only one halacha? Huh? You left the last line? Okay, you could read again the whole halacha. The problem is we need over here a suda to make a yom tov l'rabbanan, to be mekayim Birkas Hanehnin. It's a truk in a... Really here, yom shlishi, here you go. Take the mic.